Good morning. I'm Matthew Johnson, Senior Minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Rockford, and whether you are joining us live at 10 Central on August 2nd, 2020, or later, welcome. Whether you're a member friend of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford or another Unitarian Universalist Church, welcome. We're glad that you have found your way here for worship today. If you're exploring religion anew, welcome. We are glad to have you with us. Whoever you are and whatever brings you here, welcome. We're coming to you from the sanctuary at the church here. With me today is Jesse Parker, one of our summer musicians, and Dwayne Wilkie, a member of our choir, who will be our song leader today. Lindsay Dunn, our Director of Religious Education, will share a story with us all later. And Autumn Powell, our office manager, is in the back of the hall running technology for us. Our worship associate, Peggy Menz, has pre-recorded their testimony, which you will hear later in the service. And Chris Ainsworth, our membership coordinator, is at home and will be chiming in on the Facebook feed. If you're watching on Facebook, there's a comment area, and we invite you to say hello so that we know that you are here. It's always great to see your names pop up, and you can share your thoughts and add names to the prayer and other pieces of the service as well. There are quiet mode instructions if you prefer not to be distracted. We have a ritual now of how we worship in this time and what we do. You'll notice some changes this morning. We purchased some new technological equipment. It was money donated in honor of Bob Bowen, a member of this church who died some years ago, and people donated in honor of his memory, and the Memorial and Special Gifts Committee of the church thought this was a good purchase to buy some cameras and some technology. So you'll notice some new things this morning. We hope it will enhance your experience of worship with us together. So I will ring the bell, and we will begin. We've entered a new month at the church. Every month we have a new theme. We get these themes from the Touchstones Collaborative that we're part of Unitarian Universalist congregations. And the theme for August 2020 is creation. We'll be thinking this month about some of the lines in the first part of the story of Genesis in the Hebrew Scriptures and talking about what it means to be creative and to co-create together. And since we're talking about creation, we couldn't help but choose as our hymn of the month a song of creation and recreation. Morning has broken. I invite you to
praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
We had a little sound issue there. That was me not clicking a button before, but we fixed it. So I hope you heard the end and sung along with gusto. Trust me, Dwayne sounded beautifully here in the room. I'm so glad that you are here for worship. Today's your first time with us. We're especially happy to have you joining us online. Please do take a moment to like the Facebook page, a way to stay in touch, and Chris will post a visitor form in the comments so that you can let us know who you are. We are planning a Path to Membership class for folks who are new with us, whether you started worshiping with us in person before the pandemic forced us online, or whether you've just been worshiping with us online and want to know more about this community, this faith, and how to get involved and connected even in these times. We're going to be planning that over the month of September, some online experiences and some outside gathering as well here at the church to keep everybody safe, but to meet you and know who you are. So look for more information about that and fill out the visitor form if you are new with us so that we know to get you that information. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, and a warmth for the soul. As Lindsay lights our chalice here at the church, you might light your chalice at home, and we will speak together the covenant of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. And now we'll sing together our chalice response song.
May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May beauty, truth, and joy become a flame that burns in every one.
I invite you to breathe in and breathe out. Notice the trees, the roots that go down to the earth. Feel through your feet the earth. Notice the leaves that sway in the wind, the grass that moves. Feel the wind, the spirit of life flow through you and bend. Notice the branches, the way they reach out for the sun, for life. Notice the seeds and the pollen, the acorns and the pine cones. New life spread out, waiting for the right moment to grow. Notice the trees and the grasses and all the earth, which is you, which you are part of. Feel the earth. Feel the spirit, the air, reach out. Breathe. 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 Let us worship together.
Good morning. I am Lindsay, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at the church, and I'm happy to be with you this morning to read our story. Our story this morning is The Tin Forest by Helen Ward and Wayne Anderson. There was once a wide, windswept place, near nowhere and close to forgotten, that was filled with all the things that no one wanted. Right in the middle was a small house with small windows that looked out on other people's garbage and bad weather. In the house lived an old man. Every day he tried to clear away the garbage, sifting and sorting, burning and burying. And every night the old man dreamed. He dreamed he lived in a forest full of wild animals. There were colorful birds, tropical trees, exotic flowers, toucans, tree frogs, and tigers. But when he awoke, the world outside was still the same. One day something caught the old man's eye, and an idea planted itself in his mind. The idea grew roots and sprouted, feeding on the garbage. It grew leaves. It grew branches. It grew bigger and bigger. Under the old man's hand, a forest emerged. A forest made of garbage, a forest made of tin. It was not the forest of his dreams, but it was a forest just the same. Then one day, across the barren plain, the wind swept a small bird. The old man spilled crumbs from his sandwich onto the ground. The bird ate the crumbs and perched to sing in the branches of a tin tree. But the next morning, the visitor was gone. All day the old man walked through the silence, and his heart ached with emptiness. That night, by moonlight, he made a wish. In the morning, the old man woke to the sound of birdsong. The visitor had returned, and his mate had come with him. The birds carried seeds in their beaks. They dropped them to the dry ground. Green shoots broke through the earth. Soon the song of birds mingled with the buzzing of insects and the rustle of leaves. Time passed. Small creatures appeared, creeping among the forest of trees. Wild animals slipped through the green shadows. There was once a forest near nowhere and close to forgotten that was filled with all the things that everyone wanted. Right in the middle was a small house with small windows, and in that house lived a man who never stopped dreaming.
Where we're at as a congregation, we're continuing to worship online, and that'll be our mode of doing worship for the foreseeable future. We are, as I mentioned, planning a new member program if you're interested in getting more connected. We're also planning on September 13th, after the service, which will be online. We invite you to come over to the church if you are so willing and think that's a good idea for you. We'd love to have you come to the grounds, bring a chair or a blanket, bring a lunch if you want, or just come and say hello. We'll have a little kind of homecoming outside gathering. We'll give more details as we get closer to that, but just a chance to come and see the grounds. We've been doing some improvements here, and it looks beautiful, and to see one another's faces. And to reconnect before we begin the fall in person a little bit outside where it is pretty safe. So please do be safe, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and I continue to think of all of you. As I mentioned, this month we've got a new theme, creation, and it made sense for us to highlight this month the work of our Green Sanctuary team. That team has existed here at the church for a long time under relatively new leadership with Bob Babcock, one of our most recent Connolly Award winners, who's taken the reins of that group. And we've got some programs coming up later this month around our Green Sanctuary work, including at the very end of the month, actually the very beginning of September, a discussion with the Reverend Adam Robersmith, one of the authors of an essay in the volume Justice on Earth, about the intersections of race, class, and environmental justice. So look for more details about that program, as well as opportunities to learn about solar financing and other things where we can make a difference for this planet Earth, our home. And that means we're collecting each month for different organizations in our community that do work to promote environmental justice and stewardship and ecology. This week, we'll be collecting for Sustain Rockford, which is a grassroots group that presented here at the church before. Many of our church members are very involved in this group, and they work on everything from, again, solar work and community solar to environmental sustainability and ecological justice. It's a small, mighty group, but totally grassroots, and so your support this morning will go a long way to advancing their work and producing materials and resources that they can share with others. So the offering will be given and received. 80% of what we collect will go to support their work. You can give online, and Chris will post the link in the comments there or at uurockford.org/donate. Don't forget to make your annual operating gifts to the church as well. Share the Plate is separate and different, and we appreciate your ongoing support for the church and its work during these very strange times. The offering will now be given and received.
Good morning. Okay, boomer is a disparaging catchphrase used by young people to dismiss the often outdated attitudes associated with those of my generation. I have to admit that it can be hard to hear, perhaps in part because sometimes it's true. There are many things that those of us born in the 2 decades after World War II have messed up. One place where we boomers have messed up is in taking care of our home, this amazing planet. We as a generation had a chance to lead, but we didn't, and our time is slipping away. It isn't as if no one was talking about it. In 1962, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring was published. The first Earth Day was in 1970, the same year that Congress passed the Environmental Protection Act. Later, a fellow boomer and Senator Al Gore wrote of the earth imbalance and an inconvenient truth. As a generation, we were told, but we didn't listen. While many of us individually have worked towards environmental justice, we as a generation have not been up to the task. We have prioritized what we have convinced ourselves as economic interests over the planet that we leave to our children and grandchildren. In the ultimate do as I say, not as I do, we have shifted the burden to the generations that follow. At this stage in life, my primary responsibility is to be Nana. In that role, I get to spend 3 days a week with Kaylee, 9, and Maya and Mackenzie, 4.5-year-old twins. On those days, I get to witness their minds growing, their creativity, and their curiosity. Kids at that age see the world in such an amazing way. In the last year, one of the activities we have enjoyed has been nature walks. The first time out, we walked around the neighborhood looking for different seeds that would appear on trees. Another walk had us rescuing a box turtle found in the middle of a residential street and getting him back to a pond nearby and to release him back to his habitat. This year we visited wooded areas and looked at wildflowers, birds, made friends with a worm they named Willie. I was surprised by their disgust when we saw litter on the ground. Look, Nana, garbage. People are just throwing things on the ground. We should pick it up, as Maya lifted a rusted Coke can. Well, her intentions were spot on. I told her to drop it, and we'll bring gloves and a garbage bag next time. Recently, my close friend, a retired grade school teacher and certified naturalist, gave me materials she'd used while teaching at an environmental learning center. So the girls and I have been working with the development of butterflies, specifically monarchs, looking at different insects, wildflowers, the importance of bees. This past week, the girls asked to watch Storybots, a kids show found on Netflix about characters that live inside a computer and answer questions that were actually sent in by real kids. One of the episodes was about recycling and a visit to a landfill. The girls were totally glued to the screen. I love that they have interest in what is going on with our world. It gives me hope that when it comes to the next generation, there is concern and the need to be knowledgeable about what can be done to save our planet. And who knows, perhaps one of our nature walks will plant a seed or a passion for science and technology that will blossom into a career that does just that. Dr. Jane Woodall observed, "You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make."
Sun, for rain,
One of my favorite songs, I got to tell you, For the Beauty of the Earth, part of the Misagaya Earth Mass. I note that for some folks the captions are great, for others you're finding it distracting, so we'll spend a little more time researching this week. You can't turn it off on your end. We're doing it on our end. It's a free service that we're using, and I think if we want you to be able to turn it off on your end, which I know would be great for some of you, we may have to figure out a paid service. So we'll do some research. We'll keep working on it. For now, I hope that it is useful to some of you, and as we keep learning how to do this together. Two readings this morning. The first is from an essay on the environment and society called Laudato Si by Pope Francis. Ecology studies the relationship between living organisms and the environment in which they develop. This necessarily entails reflection and debate about the conditions required for the life and survival of society, and the honesty needed to question certain models of development, production, and consumption. It cannot be emphasized enough how everything is interconnected. Time and space are not independent of one another, and not even atoms or subatomic particles can be considered in isolation. Just as the different aspects of the planet, physical, chemical, biological, are interrelated, so too living species are part of a network which we will never fully explore and understand. A good part of our genetic code is shared by many living beings. It follows that the fragmentation of knowledge and the isolation of bits of information can actually become a form of ignorance unless they are integrated into a broader version of reality. When we speak of the environment, what we really mean is a relationship existing between nature and society which lives in it. Nature cannot be regarded as something separate from ourselves or as a mere setting in which we live. We are part of nature, included in it, and thus in constant interaction with it. Recognizing the reasons why a given area is polluted requires a study of the workings of society, its economy, its behavior patterns, and the ways it grasps reality. Given the scale of change, it is no longer possible to find a specific, discrete answer for each part of the problem. It is essential to seek comprehensive solutions, which consider the interactions within natural systems themselves and with social systems. We are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis, which is both social and environmental. Strategies for a solution demand an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time, protecting nature. The second reading is a poem by my colleague Nancy Schaefer, titled Field at Table. When I began to bless this food and close my eyes, I lose myself. First, just in green. How do leaves grow themselves this green? And how do they grow at all to be so large? And how do they make themselves from soil, which itself is only brown? And sunlight helps and water, but how is the end of this green? How can I bless this food? It blesses me. Thank you, I say, for this bowl, which is also field, this green, which is meal before I eat. Thank you, I say, that this green becomes me. Thank you for mysteries, this life. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. As you gather this morning, this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, whenever you might watch this and be part of this, I invite you to lift your hearts and open your spirits. to hold in tender love those among us known and unknown, our neighbors and strangers who are hurting and in need of love and reconnection, peace and justice. Becky Wyan asks us to pray for her granddaughter and her mother who will be sharing the kidney transplant experience in the coming weeks. May all be well. A prayer request for those unemployed and fighting fear and despair, and times are going to be hard. And we hold you in our love and concern. I'll ask you this morning to hold the family of Carol Foster in your thoughts and your prayers. Carol died earlier this week after a brief battle with mesothelioma. Too young and vibrant and full of hope. Her beloved husband Ed, her daughters, granddaughters, son-in-laws, sisters, extended family and loved ones, her friends, many in this church who have known her and loved her for decades. She understood in a way that only some really get, the power of community to care for one another, and that it requires people who do the work and who love one another and speak the truth in love to make community real. I will miss her so, and I know many of you will as well. We'll have a service to celebrate Carol's life and remember her and grieve together on the church grounds outside on August 15th, the Saturday at 1 o'clock. Bring your own lawn chair and bottle of water. We'll have some tents in case it's really hot to sit under with fresh air and the beauty of nature. We will hold her life in love. Again, that's Saturday, the 15th of August at 1 o'clock. Spirit of life and love, I pray also this day for our city, for Rockford, Illinois, that we might see one another in fullness of our humanity and take a step back from tactics that escalate, that cause division and violence, instead of move toward relationship and understanding, that we will hear and attend, that those with power, those armed and authorized to enforce the law, will exercise more restraint than some of their members did on Friday night in ways that seem outrageous. To me, who has participated in dozens of civil disobedience actions around the country, there is a way these things are done that was not done by those who have the power to make those choices. We pray that the call of Eliminate Racism, which 815, which many of our members participate in, will be heard, to reform and change and hold accountable those in power, to move toward a society of justice and equity for all. This morning, take a deep breath. Step back from the brink of anger and retribution and move toward relationship and justice, grounded in our common humanity and our love for one another. There is no other way. There is no other way. May the Spirit of love attend us, challenge us when we might be complacent, comfort us when we would grieve and mourn, make us courageous and hopeful when we might despair. Connect us to one another and to the love that is larger than our names. Blessed be, Shalom, Amen, Ashe. Okay, we fixed the sound. I think that's working now. And I made the most hilarious joke you've ever heard in your whole life. Lindsay and Dwayne and Jesse and Autumn laughed uproariously, and you all missed it. I'm sorry about that. No, that's actually not true. So we had a little trouble with that, but we should hopefully have fixed it. What I was saying is that we have removed the captions. The words weren't turning up right, which is very disorienting cognitively to hear one thing and see something else. So we'll work on a better solution for that. We're trying a free system, see if it worked, and it worked better in the test than in real life. Shocking, right? That's what happens, isn't it? So we'll be patient, and nobody taught us how to do this. We're learning as we go. So we'll all appreciate your grace and understanding. There was morning. There was morning. And you rise, each in your own way, quickly, slowly, before the sun shines its light on the trees and the fields, or well after it has poked through the curtains and lit up your room, you rise. You put on your workout clothes for a run or a kayak trip, or you get dressed for work or life, or you stay in your pajamas and look out at the world. You rise. There was morning. The recreation of the world, the earth, our home, this blue spinning marble, this table at field. These green leaves, how do they grow from the brown to make berries and fruits and grains? The dew on the grass, the wind that rustles by, the creatures of the earth too, the birds singing, the toads croaking, the dog barks, and the geese with their wild cry over and over, announcing and all that. And you. You are not separate from this creation, from this morning, from this earth. You are not a wanderer in the wilderness, but part of it. And society, culture, architecture is not separate from the earth, but one woven and pulsing thing. Life, creation, power, birth and growth, and death too. Nature is red in tooth and claw, Blake said, and of course this is true. It isn't all cotton candy and soft moss on pleasant rocks, oh no. And we know this too well, don't we? Way too well. The natural end of things that live, which we can handle, though it is sad, but also decay and invasive species and floods and quakes and fires and illnesses and viruses and cells that attack its own body, and the human forms of such things. For what is racism and oppression and violence but cells that attack the body? Part of the whole turned against the whole, the common good, the interdependent web of life. This is morning. Francis, and yes, this is me quoting the Pope, on this, his writing is profound. Francis reminds us that the earth is all interconnected, and that includes social life. All living beings are interconnected, and that fragmentation is a form of ignorance. And that only through attention to systems, interconnection, the web, the dance of it all, can we move toward healing, justice, and flourishing. It's all connected. It's all one. The beauty and the pain, the challenge and the hope, the hurt and the love, all interwoven. And fragmentation, individualism, isolation is ignorance. It's a kind of violence, really, that separates what should be connected. I've said before from this pulpit, and I will say again, when Darwin said that it was survival of the fittest, he did not mean survival of the strong. We think fitness is working out, being tough, but what he means by fit is that the piece fits in the slot, as is. It's the survival of the most cooperative, is what it is, the one that finds a place in the system, that helps the system thrive. I see it over and over and over again. Relationships between lovers thrive when they care not just for themselves or even for each other, but nurture what Robert Bly called the third body, the relationship itself. Families, friendships work the same way. There must be intentional nurture of interconnectivity for thriving to happen. That's been hard for a while, hasn't it? But that's what's needed. Movements for change work the same way too, when they are intersectional, when they expand the coalition, when they bring aboard folks who have adjacent and interconnected concerns, when they grow through love, beauty, and compassion. Those movements win. They succeed. When movements isolate, when they purify, when they cling to righteousness, they might thrive for a moment, but they eat themselves and fail in time. And religious communities work the same way. Covenant is about interconnection, about ecology, about something larger than the sum of the parts, and to which we pledge our loyalty and service. It is about recognizing that diversity of perspective, diversity of experience, diversity of longing requires of each of us humility, curiosity, and care. And that the virtues we learn by living in an interconnected covenantal community will serve us well in building the world that we seek. There is mourning. The seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism says we covenant to affirm and promote the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. Now, you can read that as respect for the earth, and you should. That's a true thing. But it's more than that. It's deeper. It's electrons that are particles and waves at once. It's wider. It's the ocean breathing and forests alive. It's more. It's stardust and that we're all part of it. It's from earth to earth and dust to dust. We come and we return. It's all my relations. It's ancestors who flow through our veins and descendants we will never meet, and yet to whom we owe a duty of care and love. And it's the holy, the sacred, incarnate into life, all life, our lives and other lives, human and otherwise, a sacramental imagination which reminds us that everything is holy now. Everything. It was morning. You rise. In whatever way you do, you come to the world and you are invited, provoked, seduced to notice the morning. The world we share, feel, hear, touch, taste. Close your eyes and know the green on field table. Close your eyes and feel the lead dust poisoning the air and the water. Close your eyes and feel the butterfly sucking from the flower. Close your eyes and see the fungus overcoming the fallen tree. Close your eyes and feel the sun which shines upon us all, no exceptions. Notice, feel, be part of the woven creation of life, the way the tides move because of the moon, the way the earth sailing through the stars, and know that you are part of this. We are all part of this, for good and for ill, for beauty and for pain. Practice ecological thinking. Practice ecological loving. Live ecologically. What does it mean? Practice ecological thinking. Remember that everything is connected. We are on one boat, all of us, all things, and what we do to the web, we do to ourselves. See patterns, not isolated movements. Move toward connection, not away from it. Invite more life. Celebrate beauty. Strong ecosystems are diverse, cooperative systems. Be that. What does it mean? Practice ecological loving. Each form of life has a purpose of its own, and together a larger story emerges. Love each thing for itself. Love yourself. Be patient. Be tender. Neither too much water nor too little helps the plant grow. Love the larger story. What does it mean, live ecologically? Celebrate creation, nurture life, waste not, destroy as little as possible. Be humble. Be deeply and profoundly humble. For you are not the web, not the spider, but just a strand, part of a strand, really. And there are stars and whole galaxies, maybe whole universes, yet unknown to you. Lie down in the field and stare up at the stars. Even when the sun's out, the stars are there. Lie down in the field and notice the green, the growing things, the new day, the promise. You have a home in the family of things. This is your home, but not yours alone. Not alone, woven, a tangled set of roots, underground, woven and tangled and nourishing. There was morning. Even now, especially now. Especially now. We're beginning month 6 of living with this virus and the disaster it and the failure of our national leadership have caused to our lives, our families, our mental well-being, our economy, and our schools. Month 6 of a pandemic. We're in the 401st year of racist policies and practices against black people in this land. 528 years against indigenous people. And while all this happens, an ecological disaster rolls along, and we lack the courage and the will to face it together. Individual action being helpful but not sufficient. Are you feeling the rage, the frustration, the impatience, and the confusion? What I see, especially on social media, which is what a lot of us are left to, unfortunately, without face-to-face community, what I see is too much of one group fighting another. Teachers versus parents, employers versus employees, radicals versus reformers, just to name a few. But this fighting, this circular firing squad, gets us nowhere. Accomplishes nothing. I've played that game. I have, and every time I regret it. There was morning. Ecological thinking, creation care, noticing how all life is interwoven is an invitation to a different way of being. Our fates are bound together. The earth, the living creatures who call it home, including us, drifting here, we are companions, not competitors. We are bound together. I feel like we walk around shaking our fists at the leaves of injustice and trouble and ignoring the roots. We've convinced ourselves that only the strong will survive, or forgotten that the fittest means the ability to cooperate. Or we think that the issue is only schools, or only employment, or only race, or only class, or only healthcare, when it's all part of one whole. Or we know it's a huge system, but that takes us to freezing, to inaction. Instead of saying, aha, I am not the only gardener. I am not in charge, but I'm still responsible. I'm part of this whole. I'm a companion too on this blue-green earth, and so knowing it's all connected, we're all connected, I will do my work and treat my companions with reverence, all of them, all of me too. For all life is sacred, holy, and wondrous. There was morning. You rise. In whatever way you do, you wake. You come to this day we are given, this recreation of a new earth, and so now what? How shall you live? How shall you love? It is my prayer and my longing this morning that we shall live as trees with deep roots, that we shall live as bees helping the flowers grow and making the world sweet, that we shall live as apes who care for their young, that we shall live as elephants who remember their dead, that we shall live as one, interwoven and connected, serving and sustaining and improving a whole greater than the sum of the parts, that we shall live with love for the whole of life, all of it, of which we are a part. There was morning. We wake to the new day. Sing together, words by the Unitarian Universalist composer, songwriter Peter Mayer, Blue Boat Home. I invite you to sing along at home. Big thank you to Dwayne and Jesse for providing our music this morning and staying patient with the rest of you as we figure out some of this stuff. We'll extinguish our chalice here at the church. You might extinguish your chalice at home, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we are together again. The words of our benediction from the poet Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life or my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief, I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. We'll sing together our song, Blessing. I invite you to sing at home.
Is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go our way in peace, wander as we may. Blessed is the path we take, may love guide us on